Remakes, to me, are an interesting type of game, mostly because of the intrigue they can offer. They bring older titles to modern times, which more often than not can bring some really big changes to them. I'm not really talking about changes to the graphics like a normal remaster. I'm talking about, quality of life changes and much more. And with this video, of course, I just want to go over some of the reasons that I think can make a remake really great and stand out from a normal remaster. And while some of these could go in a remaster, I feel it should be expected in a remake, since more often than not, they have to go an extra mile since they're, remaking the game. The first point I want to go over definitely has to be keeping all the content from whatever the most recent release of the game was. Having this is at least expected to me, since the content already exists elsewhere, so why not bring it over to the remakes as well? It also gives the remakes a good amount of content from the get-go without having to add or change anything, since, again, it's already there. It also helps the games from feeling like not the lesser titles, because for me, at least, what I think is that why would I go play these games over the originals, since, the originals might have more content in them. And while the said version might not be available to buy elsewhere, there's still the feeling of missed opportunity, since, the previous version had more content. Stuff like this with Gen 2 remakes, I think, is a great example, since it kept everything from gold, silver, and crystal. And again, on the buying stuff, you can also emulate, which, that's not the most preferred version, but, at least that's an option as well. And on a very similar point is expanding on what the other releases of the game have done. This could be adding more depth to certain elements like the story, characters, gameplay, or explorable areas. And I feel like doing this can bring new life into other titles, and honestly, it's just a really nice surprise. It also gives players of the original a somewhat fresh experience, since now they don't know what to expect. And new players off the gate just get a whole bunch of new stuff. And I think the Resident Evil 1 remake is a good example of this, since, it adds new areas, like for example, the outside of the mansion near the main entrance. And it also has new characters by adding Lisa Trevor, and I found that to be pretty cool. And then we also have adding quality of life features that I mentioned earlier in the video. And this is something that can greatly improve a game that might have been kind of clunky in the past. A great example I think of this is the Pokemon Gen 4 remakes, with stuff like the HM moves being moved to the Pokédex app. This greatly improves traveling, since you no longer have to run back to get a Pokemon with a move, or waste time deleting moves and then relearning them later on. This also helps with movesets, since as the last point, you don't have to delete any of your moves on your main team, so you're good there. And I think smoothing over issues the original version had of the game definitely can make the remakes a lot more enjoyable, and to me might be a good reason to prefer a remake over the original version. Then we also have the music, which honestly for me, I'm fine with just having the music just sound better. I'm not massive on remixes, so honestly I'm just fine with either having that or just, obviously the soundtrack sounding better, as I just mentioned. But if there is a remixed version of the soundtrack, I like to see having an option to toggle between the original version or a remixed version. This is great for a few reasons, one of which, people who are already familiar with the soundtrack get a fresh experience, and I think those who haven't played the original at least get to, see the difference between how it was back then and how it is now. It also brings new life into great songs, and in some cases can actually make the original songs a lot better, but obviously that's just up to the composers. Another thing I think that could make a remake great is having the gameplay style that was in the original, but of course smooth it out. Adding the modern mechanics if the series went on for a long time, and just making the game feel less clunky. Like for example, with the Gen 3 remakes, they had permanent TMs and stuff like fairy types to help, expand your options in your team and the gym leaders and just whatever else. And back to the other point, the main reason I think having the original gameplay style should be expected is just because, again, like my content point, it's already there, you don't really have to change much. So say if you're remaking a first-person shooter game, might as well just keep it as a first-person shooter. I don't mind minor changes to the gameplay style, like for example, again, the Resident Evil 1 remake where you can actually use analog control, or say Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes where they became over-the-shooter games instead of the mechanic control ones. But in the end, I still rather prefer having like the exact gameplay style, just maybe having a few more options in how you want to play the game. And honestly, in the end, I think remakes are a really slippery slope, since since, they could either go completely right or just, downhill. And a lot of which is for the reasons I mentioned above. And while I think expanding on what the original game did is always a great thing, they could either change way too little, have really confusing decisions on what to keep and what to change, or if worse comes to worse, they just make it feel like a totally different game. And the too little part can be really frustrating since, if they had more time, or maybe if they had a different team, they could have added a lot more cooler stuff. Like again, the Gen 4 remakes, some parts that they chose not to expand was really weird, like not having the platinum teams in the main game and only having platinum Pokemon in the underground when they could have easily just, kept it in the oval and whatnot. It's just really weird. And the game, while has some really good additions, it's also underwhelming in a lot of other aspects. And while I do think it's a better game than the original, it's not by much if you ask me. And overall, remakes are just, again, really weird to make, and even in the best cases, they might not please everyone. But I want to hear what you guys think makes a good remake and what doesn't, and let me know in the comments below, along with subscribing to the channel and liking the video. Also, follow my Twitter, which will be linked down below in the description. I just want to say thank you all for watching. See you guys later.